Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this image. I've given this image more interest by including the reflection in the water. This also gives an additional narrative to the falling leaf subject. The whole thing is lit with a single flash. However, a number of simple techniques make capturing the image considerably easier. And in this video I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Okay, so at this time of the year there's quite a lot of falling leaves around, so I've collected a few and I've picked one in particular and I've mounted that just on a piece of wire. I think you can just about make this out. And I've put the whole thing in a clamp just to make it easier to manipulate. So this is literally just stuck on the end of this piece of wire just with a little blue tack. Okay, so that's going to be our subject, and to give us the reflection I'm just going to use this baking tray, and I'm just going to put that on here and put some water in here. There we go. You don't need a great deal of water, just enough to cover the base of the tray really. Right, so now we can just place the subject roughly in the right place, roughly in position. Something like that, just over the water. Okay, so the next thing would be to set up the camera. Now, I'm using a medium format camera, but there's no reason why you can't use a full frame camera or whatever you have available. I'm using a 120mm macro lens on the front of this, but anything around about 70mm should do you quite well. You might need to add an extension tube because you're going to get quite close. But you want something which is medium telephoto in length, so it keeps the distance between the front element of the lens and the subject quite large. Okay, so if I just place this something like in the right place, that, and I'm just going to wind up the center column on this tripod just to get the camera at something like the right angle to the subject. So about there should do me, I think. Okay, so with that about set, the next thing to do would be just to look through the viewfinder and set up the shot properly. So what I'm going to actually do is just turn this camera on, like so, and I'm going to use live view just to make it easier to show you how I set it up. So I'll just start up live view here. Just make that a bit bigger. And now I can just focus up the lens. There we go, just as a rough focus to start with. And I think I just need to move that all over ever so slightly. And I think the height is about right as I've got it at the moment. There we go. Okay, so that's initially set. I can get rid of live view now. And the next thing I'll do is just take a test exposure just with the house lights without any flash, just to make sure that I don't get any contamination. So what I can do is just have a look at the settings that I have on the camera at the moment. They're all through on the software here. So I'm using Capture One and it's in full manual mode. I've got a shutter speed of 125th of a second. ISO 100, and at the moment I've got an aperture set of 5.6. Now that may well change, but it's a good starting point in terms of depth of field. I don't want anything too big. Okay, so with those settings I'll just capture an image. Yes, and there we can see there is a ghost of an image there, but nothing too much to worry about. Okay. So now, any light which I now add will be the only light which affects the subject. So, to light this, what I'm going to do is actually place a flash around the back here. So here we have a studio flash, just with some barn doors on it. I'm just going to place that about here. Now if I used it in this manner, in fact what I'll do is take a picture with it like this, and you'll see that we'll end up with a reflection of this light in the water. Okay, so with that about set, what I can do is just at an arbitrary energy level, I'll grab an image and we'll see what we get. Okay, and sure enough, we've got a reasonable reflection of the light in the water here. But that's not really what we want. We want something a bit more graduated. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is add some diffusion material in front of this, about here somewhere. So here we are. This is 216 diffusion material. I'm just going to pull that down in front of the light. Like so. Okay, so with that in position, I'll grab that image again and we'll see what it looks like this time. Yes, there we go. That's considerably more like the sort of image that I want. It's possibly a little overexposed, and I just want to zoom all the way in to check the focus. And the focus does look actually quite good. You can see all the various veins and bits and pieces in the leaf here. Okay. And just looking at the image on the screen here, I think it's ever so slightly a little bit blue. So I'm just going to use the software here just to set the color balance. So I'll just pick this bit at the back here, which I want to appear as grey, and I'll just use that as the set point. There we go. Yes, that's a bit better, isn't it? Okay, so that's the basic image, and the exposure may be altered a little bit as we go along. So the next thing that I want to do is introduce some disturbance in the water, so some drips going into it. Now there's lots of different ways to do this, but one of the simplest, which works very well most of the time, is just to use an old polythene bag. And what I've got here is a bag, and I've made a hole in the corner here, and I've partially covered that with some black sticky tape. I think you can just see on the bag. So it'll just limit the water as it goes through it. Okay, so we'll just put some water in the bag. There we are, and you should be able to see that that is now dripping out of the corner just as I want. There we go. So all I need to do now is suspend this above the tray here, and that will just drip into the tray, and I can use that as the disturbance in the water. So just to support the bag, I'm just going to use this lab stand. Pop that in there. There we go. And now I can position this so that it's just in front of the leaf. I think it possibly wants to be a little lower, so I'll just take it down a bit. There we are. I better just make sure we can't see that through the camera. Yeah, that's just at the top of the frame. I can live with that, I think. Okay, so I can just adjust this now, just to make the drops appear where the leaf touches the water. Okay, so we'll just grab an image and see what it looks like. So it's all a bit hit and miss. Give that a go. See if that was anywhere near the right place. Okay, so you can see that we're starting to get there. We've got a bit of disturbance going on. Now obviously there will be a delay between me pressing the shutter here and the camera actually operating. The mirror has to move up and the shutter open, etc. So one thing that you can do with a lot of cameras these days is lock the mirror up. Or if you're using a mirrorless camera, you don't have that problem at all. So what I'm going to do is just lock the mirror up on this camera, like that. And now if I operate the shutter, it doesn't have to move the mirror out of the way first. So it's a bit more instant. Okay, so let's give it a go. Okay, varying degrees of success there, I think. That one I missed completely. Okay, so now it's just a case of carrying on and taking a few pictures, and one of them will have the drop in the right place that I want. Okay. Okay, so if I just go back through the ones that I've just captured, that's a particularly nice one. That's the sort of thing that I want. And that's good too. And I like that one. So those three are really the sort of thing that I want. Okay, so you really see that this is actually quite easy to do. It's quite simple once you have the correct techniques in place. So what I'm going to do now is take these three images, which I've now captured, and put them into Photoshop, and I'll combine them together. Okay, so here I am in Photoshop, and I've loaded up the three images that I captured earlier. So this is the outer ring one, and then I've got this one, and then finally I've got this one. So the first job would be just to combine all these three into one file. And the easy way to do that would just be to use the file script load files into stack command. And I'll just ask it to add the open files. We'll click on OK. So what this will do is just make me a new file at the top here. And each of the images is now on a separate layer. So I can now dispense with the camera originals. I've always got those to go back to. So this is the file that I'll be editing. And I think the first obvious thing would be just to remove the support in each of these images. Now there's various different ways that this can be done, but the simplest would be just to use generative fill. So with the top layer selected, what I'm going to do is just go to the lasso tool, which is in here somewhere. There we are. So I'll just draw very roughly around the area that I want to make a fill for. That. There we go. We'll just click on generative fill. And there we are. It's made three variants, so I can have a look at each one. And I think I'll go with that one. That looks pretty good to me. Okay, so having done that for the main support, I'll also do the same thing for the reflection down here. So once again, we'll just draw a lasso tool around the bit that we want to get rid of. That. And we'll ask it to do the same thing. There we are, and I think I'll go with that one. So now I'll just go on to the actual image itself, make sure that layer is selected, and I'll just tidy up the very small amount which is left on the image there. So I'll just zoom in to 100% and just select white as my foreground color. Pick a paintbrush. There we are, we just removed the support. Now this bit up here is actually on the generative fill layer. So if I just go on to the mask for that, I can just alter the mask. I just make sure that I've now got black selected, and we'll just take that bit out. There we are, just zoom all the way back out again, and just do the same for the reflection. And now just to combine all these three, what I'm going to do is just turn the other layers off. So I've just got these three selected, And what I'm going to do is just make a stamp of those 3 active layers. So hold down the Shift key, the Control key, the Alt key, and just press the E key. And that has now made me a stamp of those, so I don't need those ones anymore. And they're all combined into this single layer at the top. So any global editing that I want to do, so for instance, just zooming into this bottom bit here, I can clean this up a bit more. So I'll just use the sample tool to sample the background, grab a paintbrush, make that a bit bigger and just paint over that. Like that. There we are. All cleaned up. Zoom back out again. There we go. So I can now just do the same thing to the next layer, which is this one. So once again, select that layer, use the lasso tool just to remove the support again, and also remove the reflection. And then finally just do the same to the very last image. There we go. So with those 3 layers now edited, what I can do is get rid of all the others because we don't really need them anymore. So I'll just select them and delete them. There we are. And now I can just bring the visibility back for the others. And if we go onto the top layer here, so I'll select that and change the blending mode from normal to darker color. That will combine those 2 layers together. So I can now turn that one on and off, and you can see the difference that it's making. And now do the same on the second layer. There we are. So the next thing to do, I think, would be to just look at a crop. I'll just use the cropping tool here. We'll just concentrate the image a bit. There, that looks okay. And there we have it. So with just a few simple techniques, it's possible to create quite a striking image with a dynamic element to it. And I think overall, that's worked out rather well. Okay, well I hope you liked watching how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching.